I'll never forget the day my boss called me and said we needed to sit down and talk about my new project. As I settled into his office, he informed me that I had been competitively selected to lead one of our organization's most important, high-visibility international operations. In addition to being responsible for a $7 billion budget, I'd be leading men and women from 14 different nations who'd be geographically dispersed. Our mission was to deploy 6 technology-intensive product lines simultaneously and develop the systems, structures, policies, and procedures to make those fully self-sustainable. Yeah, here's the catch. I'd be doing all this in Afghanistan in an active war zone. 6 years ago, almost to the day, I stepped onto an airplane to undertake what would certainly prove to be the most challenging assignment of my 26-year military career, to assume command as the commanding general of NATO's unprecedented effort to build a fully independent, sustainable Afghan Air Force in an active war zone. Now, I say unprecedented for a reason, in that nothing of this scope, scale, had ever been attempted before, certainly under these conditions. And the reality is, the Afghan Air Force was struggling in a very real way. You know, on the heels of a cancellation of a multi-million-dollar aircraft program, and the fact that our team was deployed across 6 different locations in what I would deem a very, very hostile and dangerous country, one of the biggest challenges we faced is we had produced 0, I'd like to repeat, 0 trained Afghan maintenance personnel, despite 4 years of effort. I'm going to pause here for a sec because this is an important point to clarify. Maintainers, those who are responsible for ensuring that the aircraft are fixed and safe to fly, are essentially to aviation what an engine is to your car. It's what allows you to make forward progress. Hence, no maintainers means you're not going very far or very fast. So, soon as I hit the deck there in Afghanistan, me and my team got busy doing whatever it is we felt we needed to do to ensure this ambitious endeavor succeeded. And for one primary reason. You have to appreciate, in a country like Afghanistan, aviation is what I would term an asymmetric advantage. That's really just fancy military talk for a game changer. When you live in a country that is notorious for its high mountain ranges and for its inhospitable terrain, air power is the ultimate high ground. But here's the kicker. It's also the only thing the enemy doesn't possess in Afghanistan, making it a very big deal. So as I said, as soon as we hit the deck in Kabul, Afghanistan, me and my team got busy. So there's the setup. What happened? So let me fast forward with you for a year, when it's time to rotate back to the United States, and I'm proud to say that progress with the Afghan Air Force abounded on every single front. Not only had we reduced overall program costs by $2 billion, that's $2 billion with a B, mission effectiveness skyrocketed in every single area. Perhaps most importantly, more Afghan airmen were mission qualified in their respective career fields in that 1 year than all 4 previous years combined. To top it all off, 2 months after returning home, we were notified that we had been awarded the Secretary of Defense Trophy for the most innovative security, assistance, training, and maintenance effort in the world, the highest honor anyone can win for this type of nation-building effort. Now, you know, I share all this with you to simply say, you know, and you heard it in the tee-up, this was a dynamic time. 4 years, little progress, things needed to move. As you can see, we were able to succeed in doing that. How was that possible? Well, I'm going to tell you. The approach we took was very straightforward. We succeeded in creating a widespread culture of trust by investing equally in 2 things, delivering results and developing relationships. Now I get, you're like, well, that seems pretty straightforward. Well, the fact of the matter is, study after study confirms that only a tiny percentage of leaders and organizations are effective at achieving and maintaining this delicate balance. And why is that? Think about it. We live in a society that is infatuated with results, so much so that we tend to measure our personal and professional progress more by the size of the programs that we build, the problems that we solve, or the promotions and paychecks that we earn. The challenge, however, when we tend to invest so much in results at the expense of relationship, is it orients us inward. It makes it easy for us to forget that results are only achieved through people, and people respond positively to feeling respected and connected, not driven or directed. High performance, then, I'll tell you, is a byproduct of people believing that they're making a positive difference, delivering results, and feeling as though they're valued as human beings, developing relationships. Only when both are present does trust show up. I remember very, very clearly the day in Afghanistan when I knew our efforts to build a widespread culture of trust were bearing fruit. It occurred early in my tour, about 3 months in, on a cold winter Kabul morning. I woke about 2 a.m., and given cable television is rarely an option in active war zones, I decided to suit up, walk the perimeter of our camp, and actually visit with some of the sentries that were there protecting our team. Given we'd received reliable intelligence data of the likelihood of an increased enemy attack on coalition forces, I decided to stop at one of our 4 watchtowers and climb to the top so I could peer over the wall. Nothing prepared me for what I saw next. Everywhere I looked, arrayed all around me, were scores of Afghan soldiers in full body armor with heavy machine guns and armored vehicles. Unbeknownst to us, but fully aware that we were at increased risk, our Afghan partners had taken it upon themselves to create a perimeter of protection around our team. Even my counterpart, the Afghan Major General in charge of the Air Force, never said anything to me. Instead, he and his team quietly and professionally did whatever they felt they needed to do to ensure we, their coalition partners, were safe. In that moment, I knew that our efforts to work together to deliver results and develop relationships had manifested in widespread trust with one another. The willingness of our Afghan partners to place themselves between us and the enemy, a tangible confirmation of their commitment to our well-being. Now, I get it. You're saying there's probably very few of us here in the military, and the likelihood is about 0 of anyone in this room ever being asked to lead an active war zone. But what I do believe with all my heart is the same approach we used in Afghanistan to be able to achieve such extraordinary results can also help you achieve high performance wherever you're called to serve. I affectionately refer to this approach as the tripod of trust. 3 things that, when present, engage, equip, and encourage those around you to do their very best work. Let's take a look at the first one, to engage. Now, employee engagement, it's a well-known fact that continues to be a challenge for organizations everywhere. Matter of fact, the Gallup agency's most recent research confirms 66% of employees today are not engaged, meaning they're not cognitively or emotionally connected to what they're doing. In addition to the hundreds of billions of dollars in lost productivity, what this translates to in practical terms is 2/3 of the people in our workplaces spend more time running away from work than actually thinking about going to work. Now, one of the primary reasons for such low levels of engagement is that many people just don't believe that their ideas or opinions are valued, that what they have to say or contribute matters. However, given human beings are social creatures who crave connectedness and yearn to belong, to be included, inviting people at all levels of your organization to take part in whatever effort at hand is a proven way not only to enhance engagement, but to promote trust. One of the ways we sought to accomplish this in Afghanistan was through the creation of what we called the Random Sample Club. Every time we on the senior leadership team arrived at our latest version of a plan or a strategy, we decided to, instead of declare victory, to push back and actually walk the hallways to randomly invite people who otherwise would not have been in this conversation. Staff sergeants, captains, on one occasion a janitor, so we could solicit their feedback about the quality and viability of our ideas. Once I had 10 to 12 people comfortably seated in my commander's conference room, we, the senior team, would essentially pitch what we had developed and ultimately decided. I can tell you with 100% certainty that not one of our plans or strategies ever survived contact with our own people, meaning those that we had invited to sit at that table always had a sense of context or perspective or experience that we, despite our many years, had never thought of. In addition to ensuring that our efforts were more realistic than idealistic, what this story confirms is how communicating to your people that you value their opinion enough to be able to invite them to the conversation is an extraordinarily powerful way to enhance creativity, decrease ambiguity, and to promote trust, to send the very clear message that you value the ideas, opinions, and contributions of those around you, regardless of their rank, title, role, or position in your company. The second element of the tripod of trust is to equip. Now, as I shared with you at the outset, there existed no lack of challenges to mission success in Afghanistan. But to our surprise, the single biggest impediment was something we never anticipated. It wasn't a lack of resources. It wasn't a lack of access to human capital. It wasn't even a very resilient enemy in the Taliban. No, the single biggest impediment to success in Afghanistan turned out to be something we never anticipated: the Afghan bus schedule. You see, as we set out to understand the current state of our system, and so we could prioritize our work accordingly, we discovered that 96% of all Afghan airmen relied on public transportation to get to and from work. 96%. What this translated to in a country that had very few reliable transport options was that time was the biggest problem that we faced. As now we were relegated to doing our work the time when the Afghan bus schedule was running, 5 days a week, 6 hours a day. In addition to us now trying to do something to mitigate this unexpected discovery, such as, can we add more buses, can we extend the routes, and the usual thing, the most beneficial byproduct of our having discovered and taken the time to understand the state of our system is it created a widespread sense of clarity for everyone on our team. Now, we, in an age of ever-accelerating change, one of the most important roles of a leader is to provide their team with clarity, and for good reason. Clarity is to an organization what fertilizer is to soil. It feeds everything visible as well as everything invisible that occurs both in sight and out of sight. When you and your team have clarity, you can establish proper priorities. It also allows you to increase certainty, improve collaboration, and enhance satisfaction. So my advice to you is this: ensure your team is clear about where they are, their direction they're going, and more importantly, are aware of the obstacles and impediments to their true mission success. Be sure you know what your own bus schedule looks like. The third element of the tripod of trust is to encourage those around you to reward not just exceptional performance, but also courageous effort. Here's my final story. There are so many different challenges, as we've talked about them, just a couple of them in this talk, but perhaps one of the big systemic ones that occurred was a lack of financial accountability. Now, there's probably not a single person in this room who's shocked to hear that, but when you're doing something as expensive and as complicated as building an Air Force in a war zone, it matters a great deal. So you can imagine our delight when we realized that there was an Afghan lieutenant colonel in our midst who had taken it upon himself to create a simple but sophisticated enough computerized budgeting program that can bring much needed transparency to this very, very opaque process. Energized by his efforts, we encouraged him to go see his senior leadership at the headquarters in Afghanistan in the hopes they too would recognize this as a tool for much needed reform. Well, things didn't quite work out as we'd hoped. Not only was his idea shot down, but in an effort to ensure this innovative airman didn't continue to try and disrupt the status quo, he was informed he would be immediately reassigned from Kabul, the capital, to Kandahar, the penalty box of Afghanistan. Although discouraged by this outcome, we also recognized it was an important opportunity to transform a valiant attempt to innovate into a unique opportunity to celebrate. So we got busy creating an award, the Order of the Penguin, to celebrate the spirit of courageous risk-taking exemplified by this Afghan airman. Modeled after the brave penguin in nature, who has to be the first to take the leap into the unknown to see if it's safe for the rest of the colony to eat, we hired local Afghan craftsmen and set about creating an original military medal, and then set up a very public ceremony. On the day of the awards ceremony, over 200 people attended, to include his wife, children, and scores of Afghan airmen. I'll never forget, as we neared the end of that ceremony, all of a sudden I looked over and this Afghan lieutenant colonel had started to cry. Unsure what had happened, I just leaned over and quietly whispered, "Is everything okay?" And he looked at me and said, "Yes. It's just in my 41 years, no one has ever taken the time to recognize me for anything that I've done." I'm happy to report that in the months following that ceremony, innovation in the Afghan Air Force skyrocketed. Long dormant ideas had finally had their chance to see the light of day. Now, it's been said that trust is the absence of fear, and fear reflects the absence of trust. When people doubt their leader has their best interest at heart, or fear repercussion for making honest mistakes, imagination and initiative wither. And when the people in our organization stop imagining and pursuing what's possible, positive progress stops. My hope is you will choose to be a leader who invests equally in delivering results and developing relationships by building your own tripod of trust. That you'll resolve to engage those around you and invite them to the conversations so their voices can be heard. That you'll equip them with the clarity they need to do their very best work. And that you'll encourage them to continue to push the organization in direction of its positive potential. War zone, not required. Thank you.